Alright, your boy Chili here. Welcome back to ROM hacking. Today we are going to be looking at the light and darkness spells. So let's see what they do. I'm going to cast light on this guy. What they should do is they should blind the enemy, and that is going to make him have a bad day. So what does that actually mean in game terms? Well, let's put our guys into position here, and let's just end our turns. Okay, so you can see that blinding the enemy basically just completely immobilizes them. They can't take their turn anymore. Does that seem to make sense to you? So here we have a character sheet for the first enemy. We're looking at their status bits and their jobs, and we can see the status bits here. 0.4 hex of the second byte is for the light status, being blinded by light. And we can see that the job for that is DC, and it has a counter value of 0B. So if I scroll through my players skip enough turns, you'll see that 0B go to a 0A. Yeah. And eventually that will go to 0 and they will stop being blinded. I think it takes 120 rounds to get to that point. You have to cycle through each player's turn 120 times, and then they will stop being blind. So that's crazy. But the fact that they don't do anything when they're blind that does seem right. So what do? Well, we're gonna consult the actual rules. So we see for the light spell, and it's the same. If you reverse it, you get the darkness spell. You cast it at a creature's eyes, and they will be blinded if they fail a saving throw. So they get a chance to save, but if they don't save, they're blinded. And it lasts for 12 turns. And it's hard to figure out, but a turn isn't like a turn in combat. A turn is actually 10 rounds. It's about 10 minutes. So that would be 120 minutes or 2 hours. And that translates into 120 rounds in the game system's combat, the way they've set it up. So it is following the rules that it lasts as long as it does. But blindness, it gives them blindness. So we got to figure out, okay, what does blindness mean in the rules? It doesn't say in here. It's actually hard to find. But if you go to page 150, so we see that for blindness, they suffer a -4 penalty for saving throws, a -6 penalty to attack rolls, and a +4 penalty to armor class. So that's a pretty big debuff. It says nothing about the character stops taking actions. That is not what it's supposed to do. They can still take actions. Otherwise, what would a -6 penalty to attack rolls mean if you can't attack, right? So the game isn't working as it's supposed to, very clearly. We have to re-enable, so we have to stop the character from losing the ability to act when they have this status. That's number one. And then number two is we have to make sure that they're getting these debuffs, because I don't think the debuffs are going to be added in there. The developers just said, just make them stop acting and that's fine enough. So they probably don't have these debuffs that they should be getting. So one tricky part is, okay, so try to find the place where the logic branches and the enemy doesn't take their turn. And that took a while to figure out, but here it is. So what we're doing here is we're loading the status of the enemy. We're checking for a special bit 19, that goes somewhere else. But if we don't have that special bit, we are ending it with this mask. And if it has one of those bits, we do this branch, and this basically skips the enemy's action. So they no longer take an action. And originally, this mask included the bits for blindness, or for blindness by light and blindness by darkness. So that's what was causing it to skip its turn. So all I had to do was remove those 2 bits from the mask. And that was all it took to get it working. And now the enemy acts as normal. But doing this alone is not good, because that means that they don't have any debuff. So the blindness does nothing. So now we have to give them their debuff. And for this, we're going to need hooks. Luckily, we already have a hook, because this stuff controls accuracy, and we have a hook for melee accuracy bonus. So what I've decided to do is, instead of adding to the AC and adding to the attack roll, I just use both buff and debuff, just adjust the attack roll. So if you are attacking a blinded character, that just gives you a bonus to your roll, which is almost the same as giving a debuff to the AC, but not quite. It's pretty close. So if target is blind, then they just get a +4 to their roll. Now, if the attacking character is blind, you get a -6 to your roll. And there you go. That solves the whole buff and debuff problem. Very simple. I didn't even have to install an additional hook. I could use an existing hook. Now, there's one more problem with the blind, and I think this is a problem with basically most spells, and that is they don't do a saving throw. So in the game, blind, light, and dark will always hit, which is bad and wrong. So in order to do that, we have to implement saving throws, which this game has no concept of. As far as I can tell, it doesn't do it anywhere, and that's bullshit. That's like an integral part of the rules. So what we're going to do is we have to install a hook when the action is happening, and there we do our saving roll check, and if it fails, then we have to skip the action. This is tricky because they don't have anything like that in here. It's also tricky. So I spent a lot of time on this stupid darkness and light spell, and part of it was because the logic is just scattered all over the place. So originally I thought maybe the logic would just be all in one routine that is handled by a script index. You jump into the routine for dark or light spell, and all the logic is in there. No, it's all over the fucking place. It actually executes the script engine twice, once for the character casting the spell, and then once again for the character being hit by the spell. So it's separated into two different contexts, and it's hard to see where the information flows between those two contexts. So anyways, what I found was I have to install a hook in one place where you cast the spell, and then in another place where the spell is taking effect on the target. So where you cast the spell is where I'm going to decide whether the throw is saved or not, because I need the target, I need a pointer to the target, and I need a pointer to the character casting the spell. The reason why, I'll let you know in a second, but I'm actually going to change the D&D rules a little bit here. But anyways, so first let's implement the throw save. So we got to put this hook into the do action thing. So where does this go? So we got our thunk here, hook do action, and that is being referenced here. So we've got a do action, and this, I think this works basically for all actions. So anything, if you attack with a weapon, if you use magic missile or a spell, if you hide, I think it all goes through here. And I just insert my hook basically at the very beginning of the function. I got to replace a bunch of code. I also got to make sure that I had to rearrange a bunch of these loading. So I'm loading from input registers into other registers that are not scratch registers. And I have to preserve these before I call into my, because it's going to trash like D0, D1, A0. So I had to rearrange the moves of them and do a bunch of bullshit. But once I install this hook, then I can do a bunch of checks. And the return value from my hook determines whether we skip all this bullshit and just exit out of the function or not. So I give myself a little exit route. And in this hook, I'm going to do stuff. I'm going to do my saving throw. And if the target saves, then I just skip the action completely. But I'm only going to do that for actions that I know about. So right now, it only works for light spell and darkness spell. And then we do, okay, so if you save, you return FF, which means skip everything. Otherwise, you return 00. This is just stuff that I had to excise to make room for my hook. So this is just stuff that it was already doing. And all right, and doing that is saving throw. Every enemy has its own saving throw. If you look into the rules manual, let's go to page 212 on the monsters chapter. We could look at like something like a wolf. Just a standard enemy you meet out in the wild. Not the weakest thing, but pretty weak in the total, scheme of things. And you can see here, save as. So it's telling you should do a saving throw as if this were a level 1 fighter. Okay. And those are well defined. For the player character classes, it's well defined. So on page 17, we see that for a fighter, for level 1 to 3, against a spell, you have to roll a 16 or higher on a d20. And if you roll a 16 or higher, then you save that spell, which usually means the spell has no effect, but it can mean different things. So essentially, you have a 1 in a wolf would have a 1 in 4 chance of the darkness spell not affecting it. Now this game doesn't have that, as far as I can tell, it doesn't have that information encoded anywhere in the enemy data. So I will have to create my own table that runs parallel to the table of data for each one of the monsters that appears in this game. And then I can write a routine that does a saving throw based on that. But I don't have that data and I don't want to do it right now. So I'm basically going to say all enemies save as a level 1 fighter. And that's it. And that's better than nothing. It's better than just a spell hits all the time. But it's not good enough. Like, if you look, I think like a dragon is supposed to save as like a level 20 fighter or something like that. Or maybe even more, I don't know what it is. But like, a spell is going to have a very low chance of hitting a dragon. And right now it has a very high chance. But before it had a 100% chance. So we're doing better. We're strictly better than we were before, but we still have a long way to go. But I'm not going to build those tables up right now. That's something for the future. So right now, every enemy saves as a level 1 fighter. And also I incorporate the blinding, because blinding has an effect on your saving throws. So if you're blind, your roll is -4. So there you go. This is the current throw saved. And I still have to, at least for the player characters, it will be very easy to implement proper saving. But we'll do that as I basically hook more spells and enemy attacks that can be saved. Right now, it doesn't really matter, I don't think. So yeah, that's the saving throw. Now, the final thing that I want to adjust, and this is a controversial one for a number of reasons, but I want to adjust the duration of the spell. Because as it is right now, it runs for 120 rounds. I just think that's way too much. It's still too overpowered. I think a spell should last for much shorter, especially a level 1 spell. Come on. And so there are 2 aspects to this change. Number 1, I want to change the duration of what the spell is. Right now it is hard-coded to 12 turns, which is what the rules say. So this is actually perfectly following the rules. I'm going to reduce that. I'm also going to do something that I'm planning on doing, which is I'm going to, for spellcasters, I want to incorporate their intelligence score more and more into the combat, because right now it isn't used at all. And so what it's going to be used for is, well, for this particular spell, the duration of the spell is going to be 1d4. So it is a random duration, which is interesting because now you can't count on how long they're going to be blind for. It adds a little spicy uncertainty into the equation. So it's a 1d4 plus your bonus from intelligence. So if you had a character with 18 intelligence, super brainiac, then you would have 1d4 plus 3. And that is how long the spell lasts for. And that is not in the rules at all. So I think that's going to rub some people the wrong way, but I think it's just way more interesting and way better. So that's part 1 of the equation, adjusting the duration of the spell, how it's calculated. Now the problem is that the duration of the spell is hard-coded. So now I'm not hard-coding it, and I have to calculate it here, but the duration is actually set in a completely different area of the code. So I have to teleport that information from here into here. And the way I do it is I create a new global called job duration. And that gets set from here, and then it can be read from here. So if the action, when the job is actually being set on the target, if that job is light or darkness, then we set the job from the global, and then we unset that global. So this is why I need this second hook here. So if we go to hook job duration, and so this is hide action success. It's not just hide, it's all actions, but this is run on the target. You can see here it's got a dungeon mode flag thing. It's removing some status bits or something like that. It's masking them out. Interesting, but anyways, so here's our hook. It actually returns 2 values packed into D0. We unshift the second value. And then D0 is the job index. That goes into the first byte of the job. And then D5 into D0. And then that goes into the second byte of the job. This is the duration. So there we go. There's how we get the duration out. So this is part 1. I now calculate the duration at runtime based on a dice roll plus character stats. More interesting, more fun in my opinion, but I'm sure some people will have a different opinion. Now the second thing is that a single turn in the combat is actually 10 rounds. That's too long. You know, if you roll, let's say, a 3, and then you have a +2 bonus, 6 turns. In the current system, that means you're going to run through every character's turn 60 times. 60 rounds. That's too much. So what I do, I figured out where it's calculating the rounds. So in this function here, enemy turn start 2. I don't know if it's only for enemy or not, but that's what I found it. Way down here, we find this global variable, and that is the turn timer in rounds. So what happens is that gets set to 10, hexadecimal A, and then every turn it's subtracted, 1 is subtracted. And what was originally happening was it would subtract 1, and when it got down to 0, it would call update job ticks. So it was only calling job ticks once every 10 rounds, which is how you got the turn calculation. So what I did is I moved that up here. So now it calls update job ticks every round. So then the job ticks are now updating 10 times faster. Works very well for hide. It works very well for light and darkness, in my opinion. Perfect. Hide, I think it's fine. Because hide starts with a value of 80. So that means you have 80 rounds. Before it was 800 rounds. So 80 rounds is plenty. You're going to attack and lose your status way before that happens. But I'm not sure. It might really screw with some statuses. Like what if you had a poison status that ran every tick? That would be once every 10 rounds. Now it's running once every round, and that might kill you like way faster than you want. So this might require some rebalancing. I might have to rework the numbers for these turns. I don't know. I'll have to look into it. But for the statuses that I've looked at so far, I think it's way better that it should update every round rather than every 10 rounds. So, and it was just a little rearrangement here. I still keep the turn timer in rounds the same because there are other places where it's referred to. So it might still require that 10 turn cycle, 10 round cycle in some places, but for updating job ticks, I want to do that every round, not every 10 rounds. And we'll see. We'll see if it messes anything up. Now we got combat with a hairy beastman. Here's status bits and job array. Let us hit you with some spell. And you got him. All right. So we got the status 04. We got DC 04. So you can see right now the timer a lot less value. Before it was OC. Now you've only got 4. And now it's going to tick down a lot faster. We go through now it's down to 3. And now he takes his action, right? Because he's blind, but he's not incapacitated. It's down to 2. Notice he missed 3 times because he's got a huge debuff on his attack. And we've got a huge advantage on our attack. That doesn't mean we're guaranteed to hit, but it means we got a much better chance. So as you can see, like I have debuffed the blind spell a ton. I've completely neutered it, but it's still a great spell for level 1. It's amazing. Because I don't want to just like, if there's a cool thing from the original game, I don't want to make it lame. I just want to balance it out a little more and make it truer to the rules. Or I want to demonstrate that the spell can miss if the enemy does a saving throw, but it's a low % chance. Ah, there you go. You didn't see the boom. And look in here, no job, no status spell. It's only a 1 in 4 chance, so it's not that great, but does happen. Does happen, you can miss. And it took me like 6 tries to do that, by the way. But anyways, there you go. Because of the way the processing is all distributed and all scattered in different routines and stuff and global variables, this was a bit of a nightmare to try to implement. And it's not done yet because I still got to get it working for the dungeon. Let me show you something. So here we got a Beastman boy in the dungeon. Let's blind his ass. What's he gonna do? Oh, he's just kind of chilling out. He's gonna walk around. He's gonna go for a little stroll. He's just vibing. he's just wandering around now. Just not attacking. just walking. He's just going for a stroll. And that's what darkness does in the dungeon. It's completely different than in tactical mode. In tactical mode, originally, it just put him to sleep, basically. In the dungeon mode, he just gets up and he's just tearing around. Okay, it's done now. But if you noticed, so let me just do it again. So yeah, it's a different job too. OE. The other ones were DC and DD. And this, for the dungeon, it becomes OE and OF. So it's a completely different story. And I don't know, like, it's just, I have to start from scratch now to get this shit working for the dungeon, because it's just totally different. So that's gonna be next video. Until then, hope you liked this one. If you did, please click the like button, helps a lot. And I will see you again with some more ROM hacking.